This is Let's Talk Business Radio with your host, Marc Ebinger. Now, here's Marc.
All right, Howie, you've been on the show before. Your clips, your video clips did extremely well. I got a lot of positive feedback, and I was like, I got to have Howie back on the show again and talk more about business and also philanthropy and things like that. So what's going on in your world?
Awesome, Marc. Great to be back, by the way. And I get to look at your cup here. It says Sergeant M. Ebinger. I like that, with your badge number.
Back in the day. This was a Christmas gift, and this is my favorite cup. So,
yeah. Fantastic. Well, look, I'll tell you that what's new and different here since the last time I was on the show is I had this crazy idea to start a foundation to give away money and influence, as we'll talk about here in just a bit, right here in San Antonio in our community. And I decided to do it with 100 friends that I know, like, and trust that get it, want to be philanthropic, and are already doing things out in the community and want to join this foundation. I should have called it OPM Foundation, Other People's Money. But instead, I called it Foundation San Antonio, and it's 100 guys. We're each putting in $1,000. And this year, we're going to give away $100,000. And then next year, if we decide to open it up to more guys, we may get to 200, 300. Maybe eventually we're giving away $1 million a year right here locally in San Antonio.
I love it. So what was the inspiration for this foundation?
My mind was idle. I was at the coast, at the beach, and I was trying to disconnect from business. As you know, I do marketing for a living, and I couldn't just let go of these thoughts of how can I be more philanthropic? What can I do in my community? And how could I have fun with my guy friends to do this and do it together? And I came up with this idea, kind of brainstormed it in my own head, started calling people, and I got 100 yeses, so here we are.
So how does it work? How does the foundation work?
Good question. I don't know yet because we're going to get the members to decide because I don't want this to be the Howie show.
Sure.
But in essence, it's a full-on 501c3 nonprofit. I also am donating, in addition to my $1,000, Sharkmatic will donate a website that'll have a front-facing directory of all its members. And then you can take it as an advertising expense or as a donation of the $1,000. But then the guys are going to decide. We'll have committees. We'll have a board. We'll decide how we're going to give the money. I'm envisioning that we're not going to do pinky transplants for $100,000, but we might fix a homeless lady's bicycle tires, which I've done before. We might take a couple kids with disabilities and pay for their swim lessons. We may do stuff like that. And I may make reference to those examples because I'm already doing that. Here's where the influence comes in. When I called Aquatots, and I'll give them a plug, they're not a client of mine, but they're friends of mine. When I called them and said, I'd like to pay for these children with disabilities to take swim classes, the owner said, Howie, why would you pay for it? I'm happy to do it at no cost. So I think that the influence is going to be worth 3, 4, 5x of the 100,000 we're trying to give away.
Okay. All right. So, you don't have a specific thing you can do, but it's going to be local San Antonio.
It's going to be local San Antonio, and I had a couple friends from outside of San Antonio that have heard about it, and they said, "Oh, we want to do it in our city as well." So my plan is to get the blueprints and then hand it over to friends in other cities, and then hand it over to ladies groups because I've already gotten some flack about, hey, why are you only guys? You know, so I see this as really expanding into other groups and other missions, and it doesn't have to be 1,000. There's nothing magical about 1,000. I just didn't want to do $100 a person and then bill every month and then, get into a whole business of trying to collect money. I can make 100 phone calls and get $100,000. I'll do it that way. Easier for me.
Okay, so you're a big advocate of not waiting until you're almost dead to start participating in your community, right? So tell me the deal there. Yeah,
so, one is we have this philosophy in Judaism called tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. And we have to look for ways of repairing the world. If we don't find ways of repairing the world, then it is we ourselves who need repair. And there are a lot of people, and we've all met these, that complain about what's wrong in the world, but they don't see themselves fixing it. So I chose to kind of take an opposite view. If I do happen to see something that's wrong in the world, I look at it as my obligation to help repair it and get to fix it. The other thing is I'm 58. I've been working since I was 8 years old. And so really I want to spend more time serving others than serving myself. There's a philosophy that I heard many years ago that most people can achieve a certain level of business success, but very few can achieve a level of significance in life. And that's my path, and I'm trying to achieve it. I'm not saying that I have, but through my philanthropic work and volunteering and having been on the board now of more than 100 nonprofits, it's my goal to achieve some level of significance in life. And I have to do that while I'm alive and while I still have energy and still feel like doing it.
Exactly. And I think you can actually enjoy it more when you have that energy and vitality still, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And here's the other thing. There's an unintended consequence. So what happens is you're serving others. You're doing all these other things. I get to sit, rub elbows with billionaire philanthropists on all these projects. These are people I would not have met with a little ad agency. But because I'm doing all this nonprofit stuff, I get to hang out with them and do stuff. And then oh, Howie, what do you do for a living? Oh, I do marketing. Next thing you know, it becomes a business connection. It's not why I do it, because I think karma, God, Mother Nature, all can figure that out if you're not doing it and coming from a view of really serving others. If you're doing it to serve yourself, I don't think you derive the benefit. But the unintended consequence of all this nonprofit stuff is that I've made some contacts in business that have been, become great friends and also big funders of some of my bigger projects, galas and things like that.
And it feels good too. You can't get away from that, right? I mean, that's almost like a drug where you feel good. Right. I would say that maybe you're just addicted to that feeling.
Very, very much so. I think most business people are addicted to a different drug called hopium, where they hope that things are really going to work out in the future. But instead, I'd rather get hooked on something like this, because the effect, and my kids, I tell my kids all the time, the effect that you have on other people is really the most valuable currency there is. At the end of the day, you're not going to look at whether or not I should have made an extra $5,000 or $10,000, or I could have done this to have a better living in terms of making money. But what you do for others and how it's received and how it makes you feel is really the most valuable currency there is. So I said, keep 2 bank accounts. One is your business bank account that you deposit into and you use that to pay your mortgage. But then you should also have an emotional bank account or a spiritual bank account. And that you can only deposit by doing acts of kindness.
And I love the fact that you're focusing on local community as well, because we need a lot more of that in our community, as every community does. But if you focus there, it feels more authentic on that connection if it's local.
Right. It does. And you know what? It's easy to, and we've all done this, right? Where you write a check and you give it to a national hospital system or, some national organization that does good work in terms of research. But sometimes we don't see the end result. And as human beings, we want to see where our money's going, where our efforts are going. And if we do it here locally with our neighbors, then we keep this community the way we've always liked it, the way we've always enjoyed it. That's one of the things I love about San Antonio. I was born in Laredo, raised in Mexico City. I've lived and worked all over the world, but San Antonio is what I call home. So I want to make this the best possible home, and I want to make sure that those who are least fortunate get the effort, at least from my hand or from others, to give them a hand up. Because we've all been in a position where we need a hand up. So when I'm in a position and need a hand up, I always take it. But if I'm in a situation where I can give a hand up, I always give it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of hand up, so, not just money, right, as far as what you can give, but also the talent. So you're an advertising agency, right? You can do websites and stuff like that. So you use some of those skills to serve as well.
Right. And I figured that out because I can't write $500,000 and $1 million checks. But I can leverage my ad agency and what we do in terms of marketing and influence peddling, if you will, to help an organization do a gala and raise $250,000, $300,000, $500,000 in one night with my marketing expertise, the staff that I have, and then the 8,700 people I'm fortunate enough to call friends on a first name basis. So I can use that influence to do that, which I can help 5 or 7 organizations in 1 year, compared to being able to write checks, all day long, which I wouldn't be able to because I call myself the world's poorest philanthropist. So,
Well, Howie, if folks want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Let's go with HowieNestel.com. That's my website that has some of my videos and personal speaking stuff. And then if you don't find that for some reason, go to Sharkmatic.com, SHARKMATIC.com. And that's my ad agency website, and let's connect in some way, shape, or form. It's best to call my office or pick up one of the phone numbers from those websites and give me a call. Because even though my staff checks emails, I have 18,000 unread emails. So definitely don't send me an email.
Yeah, right. You can get lost in the swamp of emails. Thanks, Howie. Always a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Marc.